I'm Joe, and these are Confessions of an Office Supply Junkie. Hey, this is Joe, and today's episode we're going to talk about the Hipster PDA. That's right, the Hipster PDA. Okay, what is a PDA? This is 2016. What the heck is a PDA? Okay, well, PDA was a term that means personal digital assistant. Let's go back in time to about 9 years ago. 9 years ago, the first smartphone came out on the market, the iPhone. Okay? It's only been 9 years since we've had smartphones. In 11 years ago, the first YouTube video was released. Okay, it's only been 11 years since YouTube has been around. It's not really been that long. Okay, but before there was smartphones and before there was YouTube, there were things called PDAs. They were known by various brand names. The most popular one was called Palm Pilots. I have one of the later PDAs made by Sony called a Klee, and it still works. It's a touch screen, but it's not capacitive. It's actually pressure type touch, and there is like a scroll button and a mouse button that you can go backwards on your display and all that, and you have all these basic apps. So this is a Palm Pilot, Palm operating system, a PDA, personal digital assistants. People used PDAs back in the days when the only kinds of cell phones were the little flip phones and the feature phones, before there were smartphones. And PDAs weren't like cell phones of today. PDAs were basically governed or geared toward productivity, taking notes, contacts, calendar, to-do lists, etc., etc. It was all about productivity instead of games. And in the process of the PDA world in the early 2000s, the early aughts, when you had the proliferation of PDAs and the internet was booming and notebook and laptop computers were starting to get popular, and it was the dot-com boom on the tail end of it, there was a man by the name of Merlin Man who got kind of fed up with the over-technologization of society that was heading toward and decided to create an alternative to the electronic personal device called a PDA, a Palm Pilot. And he came up with something called the Hipster PDA. And it was originally designed as kind of a joke about the fetishism of high technology. Sometime in the early aughts, I got interested as I was pursuing different kinds of journaling systems, and I was using composition books and journal books a lot, and I got interested in the idea of random access journaling. Now, when I'm using the term random access, it is in difference to the opposite term, which would be linear access. Think of linear access journaling as a magnetic tape, a tape that's linear, and all the data goes in one order, and it's ordered by time. What time it was that you recorded this comes before that, that comes after this, etc., in this linear sequence. And you can't get from the beginning of the tape to some place in there without going through the whole tape first. Well, the same thing is true with bound journal books, in that it is linear access. The pages are bound, and they go from page 1 to the ending page, and only in a certain order. You can't change the order without ripping the book apart. But I got interested in some kind of a random access journaling system because I was journaling about a bunch of different topics, and I was spreading my notes around between different journal books, and it was all haphazard, disjointed, out of order, out of sequence, and I was wanting to be able to put my notes in order by date and by subject matter. And so I started thinking about index cards. Now these are 4x6 index cards, and I started on a 4x6 index card system. And what I did is I got one of these little plastic kind of Tupperware storage boxes, and I put a ballpoint pen in the box, So here is my little black Bic crystal pen that I was using at the time. And this is my random access journaling system using index cards and topical filing by subject, March of 2004. And so these cards, there's a whole bunch of them here. It's all kinds of different subject matters. And I was kind of interested in being able to take this box with me, a nice compact box I could just carry with me to a coffee shop, a cafe. The cards are big enough that I can write on them fairly comfortably. And I have my pen in here. And so this was a little system that I kind of started carrying around with me, kind of a little note card box. But then I discovered, a few years later, I discovered the Hipster PDA. Now, Merlin Mann, who I mentioned earlier, invented the Hipster PDA as kind of it's a joke, if you will, about the effects of technology on our culture. And what the Hipster PDA is, because everybody was wanting to have their electronic personal device in their pocket. And what it is 3x5 index cards. You punch a hole in the left corner of the cards and you bind them on a binder ring. And you carry it in the back pocket, your hip pocket of your pants. And that becomes your substitute or your replacement for a PDA. It's an hPDA. And I guess at the time, in the mid-aughts, the word hipster was starting to be thrown around as a kind of an insulting term. Okay? So it had a sort of a double entendre kind of meaning. But I decided to make a Hipster PDA. And mine, I decided I wanted the cover to be a little bit more durable. And so I made the cover out of this thin sheet aluminum. This is the kind of sheet aluminum, if you go to the hardware store, to the roofing section, they have rolls of aluminum flashing. They're 8 or 9 inches wide and they come in a big roll, and it's fairly inexpensive, but you can cut this stuff with a paper trimmer, one of those guillotine paper trimmers. Anyway, this stuff cuts really easy. I reinforce the corners, the edges of the covers with strapping tape just to keep it from being sharp. I round off the corners itself. I hole punch there, and the back cover is made the same way. The secret to the Hipster PDA, and of course my telephone numbers and all that, in case somebody finds it. But the secret to the Hipster PDA is you bind these 3x5 index cards. You can put a lot of them in here, and then you can use colored index cards as dividers to divide up different sections of the PDA by topic. Now, what a lot of people started doing with Hipster PDAs is it became associated with this getting things done movement. If you remember, David Allen was a guru of personal management, and he created a thing called GTD, or Getting Things Done. And it became a whole movement back in the mid-aughts. And Hipster PDAs became part of the Getting Things Done movement. And what they did with, especially Merlin Mann with these Hipster PDAs, is that you could actually divide up your PDA. You could have pre-printed forms, blank forms on index cards that would be like templates for calendar templates. You could do a weekly calendar template on one card and have a colored border, a colored divider card to be able to find it in your PDA. You could have another one for to-do lists, and you could have note-taking sections. So it was a multi-sectional kind of a journaling system, and a diary and a day planner and all that kind of a thing built into the little Hipster PDA that was back pocket sized. And you'd carry something like a Fisher Space Pen, which I didn't plan on pulling out, but now I have to reach in my front pocket and pull out my Fisher Space Pen. You could carry a Fisher Space Pen with your Hipster PDA in your pocket, and it became a real convenient way of you doing it. And I used this Hipster PDA. I started in 2007. But what do you do with these cards, with these Hipster PDA cards, when you're done? Well, what I did is I took the cards. See, look at that. Look at all those. Those are all used Hipster PDA cards that I've gone through. And I started archiving them on another ring. Okay? And I put them in chronological order. You can put them in whatever order you want. You can do by subject matter. But it starts back actually in February 2007. The Hipster PDA was all about being able to remove the cards and reorder the cards, so it's random access. So I started with my 4x6 file box system, but the 4x6 cards were a little bit big, too big to comfortably put in your pocket. So then I started using the 3x5 cards. Now keep in mind that these 3x5 cards back in the mid-aughts, you could only find 3x5 cards ruled the wide way, the old-fashioned way. But after the Hipster PDA started becoming popular, the entire office supply industry discovered that people were starting to use these, and they came up with ruled lines going this way. So this is an example where there was this grassroots movement that actually influenced the manufacturers of office supply stuff, where to the point where you could buy whole pads now of 3x5 index cards that were ruled in the right way that you want, and they're tear off. You could tear them off, hole punch them, and stick them in on your ring. Nowadays, I've seen at Staples, they have Hipster PDAs made with vinyl plastic covers, and the index cards already hole punched with a ring. They make them and sell them at office supply stores. Isn't that great? Okay, here's something else. I was doing some storyboarding for a little space movie, and this is ring bound on 2 corners instead of 1 corner. So this was inspired by the Hipster PDA of ring binding storyboarding, because when you're storyboarding, you might want to rearrange the scenes, right? And as you're creating, well, you can rearrange the scenes because they're ring bound, and you can separate the rings apart. Think. You can separate them apart and move the order of it around, okay? Okay, so Hipster PDA, for me it started about 2007. Then I discovered this place out of Santa Fe, New Mexico that creates these wonderful leather journal books, and they created a 3x5 index card holder. It's sort of like their version of a Hipster PDA, but instead of using a metal ring and hole punching, you have this leather wallet type device that fits in your back pocket. It has a little pocket for storing cards, and then there is a front and back side where you have a little pouch, that your card slips in. See, there's 2 little corner pieces and a little thing up here, and it works the same way the other way. You can write notes, flip it over, and write more notes. And it's their version of a leather Hipster PDA, and they have their own cards. Has notes and a little date thing and lines. I don't think they're quite as there's a lot of wasted space up here, right? So I think the regular office supply cards are a little more efficient in terms of space. But me being an office supply junkie, I bought 2 whole packs of these cards, and you can see I haven't used a lot of them, but there they are anyways. So that's kind of my linear history of the Hipster PDA. I'm not using a Hipster PDA right now these days, maybe because I've been using the little neat notebooks that I make, and I'm pulling out my wallet just to show you that I have these little small notebooks, and I'll probably make this another edition of this office supply series, but these are little notebooks that are wallet size. They go in your wallet, and I make them from a single sheet of 8.5 by 11 inch paper. That's kind of my replacement for the Hipster PDA because it actually fits in your wallet. But one of the more recent things I'm doing is bulk bulldog clips, and I have a series of notes that are all related to one another, and I'm just clipping them together with a bulldog clip. Again, 3.5 by 5 inch cards. So this is another way of doing a Hipster PDA kind of thing, although the problem with the bulldog clip thing is once you take the clip off, the cards are all loose, and I kind of like the ring binding of the Hipster PDA a little bit better. So this is Joe Van Cleve. Yes, I'm an office supply junkie, but you have a good day anyways. Thank you.